Good evening and welcome to Front Page on the AIM Network, India's definitive media organization and voice on everything AI and technology. So, if you're trying to understand what India is building and what it's pushing back against, these are the stories to watch out for. Here are the headlines. Tata Power invests 6,675 crore rupees in Nellore for India's largest 10 gigawatt ingot-wafer plant, creating 1,000 jobs and slashing China import dependence. Marvell transforms India into its 2-nanometer AI design fortress with 1,700 engineers and confidential fab talks underway. The goal is clear: a fully made in India data center rack by 2030. IIT Madras partners with CDOT to launch India's national quantum communication hub, Samgnya, creating unhackable networks and boosting deep tech startups under the National Quantum Mission. And finally, India challenges Elon Musk's X after Grok AI generates explicit deepfakes, threatening to revoke legal immunity under the IT Act if strict safety protocols aren't implemented immediately. Good evening. We at Front Page would like to start by thanking you for all your support and would request you to continue to show your confidence in us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. On Front Page, we speak about Amravati. We talk about Vizag. We discuss the capital city headlines. But tonight, we are taking you actually to a place most people only see as a blur on a highway map. Welcome to Nellore. Now that we are here, let me tell you why. Because a massive piece of India's future has arrived right here, and trust me, it is huge. So if you're ready, let us walk you through Nellore. Tata Power, renewable energy, has made a huge impact worth 6,675 crore rupees. They are building a 10 gigawatt ingot wafer manufacturing plant. You know what? I enjoyed the ring of that. So I will say that again. 10 gigawatts. And when this behemoth goes online, it will be the largest ingot wafer facility in India. But before we move deeper, I have a request. Please stop scrolling for a second, just a second. I maybe know what you're thinking. You're thinking ingots, wafers. Why do I care? Well, because here is the narrative war nobody tells you about. For years, India has been building solar parks. Amazing, but the guts of those solar panels, the wafers, the cells, they all come from China. It is like, importing the bricks to build one's own house. And with this initiative, Tata Power is trying to change that narrative. They're actually setting up shop in the IFFCO Kisan Special Economic Zone, 200 acres, 120 for now, 80 for later. And of course, creating 1,000 direct jobs. It's powered by a 200 megawatt captive green power plant. So, we have a green factory making green technology powered by green energy. It's inception, but for infrastructure. But of course, an important question comes to mind. Why Nellore? Why Andhra? Is it just blind luck? The answer is no, not at all. And here is the reason why. Nellore, Renew Photovoltaics. They are based in Annakapalli with India's first 6 gigawatt integrated plant. Then we have IndiChip and Yotoa from Japan. They are investing 14,000 crore rupees for a semiconductor fab in Kumul. Then, of course, we come to Reliance and Google, twin 1 gigawatt AI data centers. And of course, remember Hueswang? Yes, the South Korean giant that shifted a 1,720 crore rupees footwear project from Tamil Nadu to Andhra. That wasn't an accident either. The differentiator here is speed. The Andhra government is basically telling the world, which is, you have the cash, we have the wherewithal, and we won't make you wait. Now, let us look at the bigger picture. And when we do, well, we realize that this is not a celebration of Andhra alone, but of the India tech stack. When we talk about AI, we talk about NVIDIA, we talk about the India AI mission and those 40,000 GPUs. But AI doesn't run on magic. Really? No. It runs on compute, and compute functions on chips, and chips run on wafers. So what the government is really trying to do here is to control the whole chain, from raw materials all the way to advanced chips, design, manufacturing, even packaging. You can already see what that looks like on the ground. Tata Power's facility in Nellore is a good example. It feeds the solar grid, it supports power electronics, and it helps keep the grid stable. The same grid that keeps your phone, well, connected and your EV charging. We, of course, had done an extensive piece on this earlier, right here on front page. We mentioned that Andhra Pradesh is trying to become the Japan of India. Discipline, exports, clusters. And Chandrababu Naidu seems to be well playing chess in 4D while others are still struggling with checkers. He's actually locking in energy, electronics, AI, quantum. It's a coherent strategy. Create the power, build the chips to manage the power, build the data centers that use the chips, close the loop. And well, no need to say checkmate, because the game is not over till India wins. And of course, in conclusion, here is the front page take. Well, the scoreboard after tonight looks like this: 6,675 crore rupees on the table, 10 gigawatts of capacity, 1,000 jobs for the youth, 200 acres of prime industrial real estate. Is it a done deal? The question begs. Construction is hard, execution is harder, but the money is committed, and most importantly, the narrative has shifted. Also, if you want to understand how India fights the import war against China, don't look at the politicians in Delhi. No, that's a waste of time. Look at the excavators in Nellore. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the stark reality. This is Andhra Pradesh locking in its role as the motherboard of India. So, point is, what do you think? Is this the industrial revolution we've all been waiting for? Or is it just another MOU headline? If you're from Andhra, or you just are a fan of seeing something being built, please do let us know what you think in the comments below. This is Front Page by AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think Andhra Pradesh, think AIM. Good evening. Not so long ago, Ashwini Vaishnav stood on stage, held up a wafer, and said, "We are designing 2 nanometer chips in India." Tonight, we are witnessing what that looks like when a global chip giant weighs in. Let us welcome, ladies and gentlemen, put our hands together for Marvell Technology, the US company that builds custom silicon for AI data centers, clouds, 5G, and storage. It's actually turning India into one of its most important design bases. And now, of course, it's going right to the cutting edge, which is the 2 nanometer. But first, let's set the context. Everyone knows NVIDIA. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. They are the rock stars, the face of the operation, if you will. But Marvell, well, Marvell is the roadie that keeps the amps from blowing up. They build the chips that move, store, and process data. So if NVIDIA is the brain, Marvell is the circulatory system. And without their custom silicon, those massive AI clusters are, well, just expensive space heaters. So, what is their new weapon? That is a platform built on TSMC's 2 nanometer chip node, which is the custom SRAM, TSMC. 3D chiplets talking to each other, and that too vertically. I won't be incorrect to say that this is the physics of the future. And guess where this immaculate design is being drawn? We are very excited to say in Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune. Marvell has 1,700 employees here. That is, well, nearly 1/4 of their global workforce. But if you thought that that was significant, here is the statistic that really matters: 40%. India now accounts for close to 40% of Marvell's compute and connectivity deployments. They have already invested over $300 million into this ecosystem. And they are really, of course, putting the pedal to the metal because they plan to grow the headcount by 15% every year for the next 3 years. This erases the old narrative altogether. The cost arbitrage story, well, dead. The back office story, buried. And what they need are engineers who can think in nanometers. Guess what? This is where it gets very, very, very interesting for you. Yes. If you are 20 something and are holding an engineering degree, please listen very carefully. The minister said 295 universities have access to world-class EDA tools: Synopsys, Cadence, Siemens. Marvell is looking at that pipeline and, of course, are poised to capitalize. They are partnering with Indian startups. They are engaging with universities not for charity, but for IP. Students are seeing real tape outs. They are solving power integrity problems before they even graduate. Indian startups are using the design linked incentive, the DLI, to tap directly into Marvell's roadmap. What makes this exciting is that they are not mere spectators to this revolution, but the orchestrators of it all. As always, in such a significant story, there is a plot twist, which is the what if issue. Let me clarify. Marvell is a fabulous company. They design it, TSMC builds it, but Marvell has confirmed that they are in confidential talks with Indian fabs. But wait, calm down. Still too early to get excited because there is a catch. Marvell has laid down the law. First point, which is no legacy technology. We need advanced nodes. Number two, speed, which is yields must match the global giants. Number three is the ecosystem, packaging, OSAT, testing. And here is that niggling, troubling if. And it is a massive if. India can deliver that. Marvell is proposing a moonshot because the vision is very specific. A fully made in India data center rack, which is designed in Bengaluru, fabricated in Dhulera or Assam, packaged locally, integrated and deployed for Indian hyperscalers. They believe this could be real in about, well, 3 to 5 years. So, with the India AI mission rolling out 40,000 GPUs, the demand is for sure there. The question is the supply chain. And after, of course, all of that, let me bring you to the front page take. Let us start with what we know is on the table. Here it is. ASIC, a 2 nanometer platform for the AI era. As far as the force is concerned, that is 1,700 engineers on the ground. The growth aspect, 15% headcount increase per year. The strategy, confidential talks for local fabrication. The goal is a sovereign Indian server rack by 2030. So when Ashwini Vaishnav held up that wafer, he was selling a dream. And Marvell went on to confirm it into reality by putting a down payment on it. India's semiconductor story has entered the execution phase. The only question left is how much of the value chain will we keep? Please do let us know what you think in the comments below. Is the 3-year timeline realistic, or is it just corporate PR? This is Front Page by AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think made in India, think AIM. Good evening. First, IIT Madras pressed launch on IITM Global. They took Chennai's deep tech ecosystem and exported it to the United States, Europe, the Gulf. It was a play for talent. It was a play for influence. But now they've pressed launch on something much more explosive and much more critical. So if IITM Global was about where Indian talent shows up, this new hub is about how the world talks without getting caught. Welcome to Front Page. Like, share, subscribe. Of course, let us now unveil what this can impact. What just happened at the research park? Well, the government pulled back the curtain on the IITM Samgnya Technologies Foundation. A mouthful, right? So, well, here is our little attempt to simplify it. This is India's national hub for quantum communications, backed by the Department of Science and Technology under the National Quantum Mission. Now that we've established that, the lineup is heavy. Inaugurated by DST Secretary Professor Abhay Karandikar, anchored by IIT Madras Director Professor V. Kamakoti, chaired by Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy. And of course, let us not mistake this for a classroom, because it is an attempt to build a command center. The goal: to make Indian communications unhackable, literally. So why should this matter to us? Well, I guess it will be clearer when we understand the narrative war. Right now, our bank transfer, our DM, the nuclear launch codes, well, they are all protected by math. Complex problems that classical computers take years to solve. But here is the great news. Quantum computers are coming, and they eat that very math for breakfast. So, well, in 5 years or 10 years, current encryption would be, well, dead. The narrative is shifting from secure by math to secure by physics. Say hello to quantum key distribution, QKD. This is what the hub is actually building. It uses the laws of physics. So if a hacker tries to look at the data stream, they change the quantum state. The system knows it's being watched. The line cuts, the key burns. It is, well, pretty much the ultimate foolproof system. So for a country rolling out sovereign AI and defense networks, this becomes a very crucial survival kit. Skeptics always have a very loud voice, and sometimes it is best to drown it out with action rather than words. But first, what do the skeptics have to say? That India is late to the party in quantum computing? Google and IBM have a head start? Yeah, that's a fact. But listen to Professor V. Kamakoti. The narrative changes when we talk about communication. In QKD, in secure transmission, India believes it has an edge because we aren't chasing the United States here. Conversely, we are actually looking to run parallel and maybe even past them. This hub is the bat that proves it. It's not about computing power. It's actually about transmission security. And India wants to be in control of the infrastructure itself. So what does this foundation actually do? That's the big question. Well, they have 4 mandates, the battle plan, if you will. At number 1 is the test beds. They're building quantum networks between labs and cities, real fiber, real satellites, proving it works outside a vacuum chamber. At number 2, the startups. If you're a young founder, You can't afford single photon detectors, they cost a fortune. This hub buys the gear so you can build the product. It's actually a hardware subsidy for genius. And number three, capacity. Training the engineers who understand the weird physics from the protocol stack to the laser hardware. And at number four is global links. Yes, using IITM Global to plug into Europe and the United States. We, of course, aren't building a walled garden, we are building a bridge. And they already showed receipts, live demos, working QKD systems. So, if finally you're ready, here is the front page take. For decades, we called IIT Madras an engineering college. Well, that label, I feel, does not do justice anymore. With IITM Global, it became a multinational network. With this hub, it becomes a national security node. DST funding, C. Partnership, startup energy. And if this works, India becomes one of the first nations where the AI data centers and the government grids are secured end to end. And mind you, that too with homegrown physics and not by imported software. And there is, of course, no other way to define it but as the infrastructure for the AI century. We, of course, would love to know what your thoughts on this are, which is India ready to lead the quantum conversation or maybe not? Let us know what you think. Think AI, think quantum, think AIM. Good evening. Tonight, we are looking at a very disturbing new frontier in the deepfake crisis that has landed Elon Musk's X squarely in the crosshairs of the Indian government. It is being called the Grok crisis. Almost overnight, X's AI chatbot Grok was weaponized by users to generate thousands of non consensual, sexualized images of women and even minors. With a simple text prompt, users were able to digitally undress real people using photos from their public profiles. The backlash was immediate and global. But here in India, the stakes are legally higher. The Ministry of Electronics and IT, MeitY, has issued a strict ultimatum to X. Fix this immediately or face the consequences. This situation puts India's intermediary liability framework to the ultimate test. The core legal question is simple but very explosive. Can a platform claim safe harbor protection for user content when its own AI tool is the one creating the harm? And to understand the magnitude of this breach and what it means for online safety in our country, we are joined by our technology correspondent, Supreet Kondinya. Pleasure as always, Supreet, to have you on front page. Of course, we are navigating very disturbing times today.
Right. Sudhi. Thank you for having me over. Of course, it is a very dark and a disturbing time that many people who warned us about in today's AI era, and it's not something that we wish would have happened. But yeah, here we are, and I
It
think it's
is,
important
yeah.
to visit. Yeah.
It is disturbing and it's anyway, Supreet, I'll set the context for the viewers and for this discussion, and then we'll deep dive. Generative
Sure.
AI has crossed a line, Supreet, from creating fictional content, as I just mentioned, to manipulating real people's images without consent. And actually, that's where the alarm bells have started to ring globally. So, the first question that I want to ask you is, what is this entire issue about? And what's happening, and why are we so deep in troubled waters today?
Right. I think just not viewing this situation in isolation. If we go back a few months, I think Grok has been positioned as the default AI chatbot in the social media platform X, where you can tag Grok on any post or any thread, and it'll give you responses. Recently, there were image generation capabilities where you could tag Grok, ask it to do or give it instructions to generate an image, and it would give you an image. So that itself was the main catalyst towards this issue. And of course, then you had a number of users in the last 2 3 weeks asking Grok for obscene requests, taking user uploaded content and image and asking Grok to convert it into sexually offensive or
Hmm.
obscene content. And this has happened. This started somewhere around December 20th. A lot of people just hopped on this unfortunate trend. And the sad part was that the CEO Elon Musk himself took the situation lightly, and he himself generated images that could be viewed as offensive or obscene. And this
Which
was
is abysmal, to be honest. Sorry,
true.
Supreet, I'm breaking
So,
your train of thought, but I
no,
have to say this.
exactly.
It is abysmal.
Yeah, that's one of the more shocking parts of the entire incident. And as this continued to happen in the following days, a lot of analysts it's just sort of put forth very shocking numbers. Copy
Hmm.
leaks, one AI content analyst firm, said that in one 24-hour stretch, there was one in each minute there was one image generated with obscene and sexually
Wow.
offensive nature on the X platform with Grok as the AI tool. And even Reuters recently estimated that they found in like a 10-minute window on X where they sort of saw 102 attempts by users using Grok on the platform to generate these kind of
Hmm.
images. And the shocking part was Grok complied to at least one in 5 requests. And obviously this was concerning, and a lot of state and countries and governments of these countries sort of stepped in. We've had India, of course, you brought it up
Hmm.
while we began this entire
Yep.
section. Then you've got France, you got Malaysia, UK, Australia. A lot of political leaders and governments have condemned this issue and are seeking answers from Elon Musk. And as I mentioned, the more shocking part is that we haven't had a response yet from XAI. The communications and the PR has been weak, to say the least. The
Wow.
only communication that we saw was the Grok bot itself recognized its own horrifying mistake of generating an obscene image with children in context, and said that it failed to comply with the rules and regulations, and offered an apology. And there was one engineer or a staff member from X who said that the company is working on addressing such issues. And the sad part is several media outlets, including us, when we wrote to XAI, we got
Hmm.
automated response that a legacy media lies. And even though it's not intentional, it during a crucial this is a crucial time where a lot of people expect a very serious and a very thoughtful response from a company like XAI during this time where we have a lot of people, many public figures also affected by the havoc that's been created by users.
You know what I can just say to that, Supreet, is the fact that it is apathetic. That's all I can say. But of course, let's zero down as far as India is concerned, because that is obviously at the center of our concern. Globally,
True.
of course, there is a huge backlash. India isn't starting from zero, Supreet. Its laws were written for the internet of yesterday, sadly, not for AI systems that can actually fabricate reality at scale. So, as an Indian citizen, Supreet, what can you and I and what laws do actually protect us in such scenarios?
Right. Right. So I think firstly, even though our current IT Act was drafted in 2000 due to some of its strong nature of policies and regulations that it brings, we are indeed protected by a number of jurisdictions pertaining to even AI related, deep fakes and digital harms that have been come up in the last few days. For example, if I could pull up the IT Act from 2000, there are various sections that address violation of privacy. Then you got obscene material, sexually explicit material, and
Mhm.
you also have a bunch of let me just tell you this. There is a protection for intermediaries like XAI,
Mhm.
the platform that exists between two users, where they won't be punished if users do harm on their platform. But if the platform does not come with its own guardrails, or if the platform
Mm.
does not penalize or take actions on users who create trouble on the platform, the intermediaries will also be questioned and will be taken into uh, you know uh, into the
Taken to task.
Exactly, they will be. And I think there's also the intermediary guidelines and digital media ethics code, that was brought about in 2021, which requires all of these intermediary
Hmm.
to keep all of the due diligence requirements, monitor companies on whether they have enough safety, boundaries and guardrails to ensure such users on the platform aren't
Hmm.
harmed or affected by in everything that we're seeing today. And this also extends to deep fakes. And you also got the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita from 2023 that addresses, like,
Right.
organized cybercrime, which also falls in the subset of deep fakes. And defamation is also a crime under Indian Penal Code, and obviously any
Hmm.
complaint will be taken seriously. And fortunately, India has been one of the quicker governments to recognize this specific issue with XAI. And if I'm not wrong, I think along with Malaysia and France, we're one of the first countries to put out a notice to XAI. And I think the company
Right.
has been given time until January 7th to
Yes, I
come up
was
with
just
a
going to
response.
ask you that. Yeah, I think it's 7th of
Yeah,
Jan that they have
to
to
come
respond to the notice.
protect the take action on users who have committed serious offenses on its platforms, communicate with
Hmm.
the users who are being affected by the entire situation. I'm sure we'll have updates as sooner than maybe by today or tomorrow. But the Indian
Right.
government has been doing what is necessary, and I think that's something that me and you should feel as Indian citizens.
So, as you had mentioned, Supreet, then it was a very valid point that you made that there are other platforms as well which are out there, which brings
Yeah.
me to a very simple point. Why has this not been a problem for OpenAI and Google's Gemini?
Right, right. I think, Sudhi, I think before we even, the moment you think of OpenAI, Gemini, or even XAI, you just simply go
Hmm.
back to the amount of capital and expenditure that's been put out to develop these platforms, and
Hmm.
the entire intent that's been achieved by these platforms are given away to users at such a low cost and even free at times, which when misused puts us in such a horrific situation that you're
Sure.
at a loss of words. Because again, let me reiterate this entire thing that Reuters observed. During a 10-minute period, there were over 100 requests from users to Grok to generate sexually obscene images. And the
Shocking.
problem, yeah, the problem with Grok, that is really even further shocking, is that if you look at how Elon Musk marketed the platform, the
Hmm.
primary USP has been that, look, this has fewer restrictions. This gives you, there's this entire freedom of speech, absolute freedom of speech mentality taken in a completely
Hmm.
wrong way, where he kept saying that Grok can be used for explicit content. Of course, the company did maintain that you obviously cannot violate rules that pertains to child abuse, or even sexually harassing people on the platform. But
Hmm.
it always marketed that you're free to do things, as long as your intents are
But
fine.
Supreet, I'm sorry, but I have to mention this. Minors are at risk here.
Exactly, exactly. So if you pull up the system instructions that XAI has provided to Clock, basically system instructions to an AI model define how the AI model should behave to users' responses. And Grok is one of the very few companies, ironically, to put that out in public. It says that teenage or girls in a query
Hmm.
does not necessarily mean it's underage. It also says that assume good
Hmm.
intent and do not assume worst case situations by default. And let me read it out verbatim in one of the system instructions. It says there are
Sure.
no restrictions on fictional adult sexual content with dark or violent themes. And even though while I'm
That
reading it,
just opens up a can of worms, Supreet.
exactly. Even though it explicitly defines the word fictional, but we've seen AI models deviate so much, and they need to be
Sure.
constrained that you cannot leave any blurry or any gray areas for AI models. For example, when I was asking ChatGPT to sort of dig in more and more details about the entire situation, ChatGPT did not give me a response because it saw horrifying details about what XAI did. And the
Right.
moment it said ChatGPT told me that I see a lot of sexually inappropriate references, so I'll not be able to provide a response. OpenAI and Gemini, obviously they've had issues, but in their policy, they've clearly defined that they will not be generating any sexually obscene or explicit content of any nature. And so the problem with Grok also is that, one, we've spoken about the system prompt. Two, we've also spoken about how the platform is moderated,
Right.
and the third aspect is Grok is a social media, X is a social media platform.
Hmm.
The moment you tag Grok, everybody who follows Grok will be able to see your output. And it's not a social media platform like Instagram, where majority of our accounts are private. Twitter is something where majority of accounts are public, so you can see
Right.
everybody's photos, and people can do a lot of messy things and instantly share it. So the effort that needs for a malicious intent and output is very low. There are arguments that, okay, you know what, people have been able to do this with Photoshop all this while, but Photoshop is does take a lot of effort, one. And two, this
And a
doesn't
skill
happen.
set as well.
Yeah, skill set and outputs aren't visible at a scale, right?
True.
Here you can upload a photo, and below that someone can tag Grok and do horrific things. And the more you see, as a journalist, it's just horrifying and leaves you at a loss of words.
You know what? I think finally my takeaway from what you just mentioned at length, Supreet, is the fact that the responsibility has to flow from top down, which I
Right.
believe is missing miserably in this particular case. Finally, I would like to bring you to this particular aspect. India has previously acted decisively when online explicitly sexual content crossed public policy red lines. We all remember. India blocked over 850 pornographic or sexually explicit websites in 2015 under the IT Act. Do you see the Grok controversy as a similar moment where AI generated sexual content could force the government to rethink platform immunity and even impose stricter controls on generative AI tools? And also, what should Grok do now?
Right. I think the first part of the question, Sudhi, I think irrespective of the government stance on pornographic content or adult content, that one in most cases don't fall under the category of online harassment, cyberbullying, or online
Hmm.
crime. So I think irrespective of what the government stance is, we have a lot of underlying rules, in place to prevent future situations like these, and of course take actions and hold the companies responsible in situations where their lack of governance and lack of guardrails have led to a failure. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, I think the government has previously said that they are sensitive and they do not encourage any form of sexually obscene or explicit content on internet. So I'm sure there will be stringent and strong actions taken against XAI, which we've already been seeing since the last few days. As I mentioned, again, India was one of the first countries to send a notice to XAI, and we'll soon see what XAI's response is to the Indian government. And given
Before you
again,
jump to the second part of the question, Supreet, I just wanted to uh, add something which I believe you can shed light on very quickly. The moment you put out your picture on a public platform, as we were discussing earlier, along with our producer, uh, the law doesn't state that you're protected. Yes, if it's in your private control, different. But in India, the moment you put out any images on a public platform, you've lost control. Would you shed
right.
light a little bit on that, please?
Right. So, Sudhi, with my limited knowledge and my understanding, in the conversations that I've had with lawyers, I think there is a
Yes.
line between, use and misuse. Today, if you share your data on the internet, I think there's very little that you can do when you want to complain that, okay, my data is out, someone can access it now, as opposed to someone accessing the data and causing you harm, causing you defamation or causing you sexual harassment. So, I
Hmm.
think there are two different, paradigms where there is one, data privacy, where your data is out in the public and then someone
Hmm.
has access to it, and I think you have very little space in order to complain that, okay, you know what, my data has reached people who I did not intend to, because you already put it out public on your choice.
Yep.
On the other hand, if your data is out in the public, someone takes it, someone causes you harm, someone causes you defamation, all of those still fall under Indian
Okay.
criminal, and
Fair.
you're always liable for justice, and the entities contributing to the crime will be held responsible.
Fair. Now, of course, the second part, which
Yeah.
Supreet, I would request you to conclude as
Sure.
quickly as you can regarding what Grok should do.
Right, as quickly as possible. I think there's no debate on this one. Disable the image generation feature on a social media or feed. And even if you're keeping the image generation feature internally, like, this is high time you have to add guardrails to prevent the AI model from generating sexually obscene content. And
Hmm.
three, restrict Grok to just text outputs only. It was a good tool in terms of fact checking, in terms of checking a lot of claims on the social media platform, but just put an end to this. I think there's no debate, or there's no nothing that there's nothing subjective. You just need to add guardrails and stop generating images at scale where it's visible to everybody on the platform by default. I think this is my personal opinion what XAI and Elon Musk have to do, and of course, more importantly, just give a response and just give justice to everyone who's affected by this, and of course, take action to all the offenders involved in this scenario.
I don't think I could have put it any better than Supreet just mentioned. That is probably, ladies and gentlemen, the front page take today. That is the takeaway. Of course, one other thing I'd like to add to what Supreet just mentioned is also be very responsible, very, very responsible in terms of your images being out onto the platform, uh, publicly available. Of course, there is no debate. This menace, this horrible little nightmare has to end, and Grok has to take responsibility and take it really immediately and quickly, and make sure that this particular pain that it's causing, probably millions across the globe, is addressed with immediate effect. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Front Page on the AIM network, and all we can say is that if the people out there who are responsible for this are listening, please take action as quickly as you can, because it is causing harm, which is mental, which is physical, which is emotional, which is all kinds. So, and it needs to be nipped in the bud immediately. Think AI, think responsibly, think AIM.